Welcome to QI, which tonight is a tissue of lies. Let's meet our perfidious panel, the Duke of Deception, Adam Hills. The Duchess of Dissembling, Sarah Pascoe. The Marquis of Mendacity, Jack Whitehall. And with his pants on fire, Alan David. Our buzzers this evening are charged with enigmatic mystery. Adam goes. Sarah goes. Jack goes. And Alan goes.
I don't believe it!
Now, before we start, remember that I have hidden a lavatory inside one of the questions, all right? Because it's the L series, one of the questions involves a lavatory. And if you think you've spotted which it is, you wave your penny and spend it. You spend your penny. All right. Let's start with a lark. We like to do larks on the L series. I'm going to show you how your senses can deceive. Right. So, Alan and Jack, you should each have a rubber hand and a little grey wooden partition. Alan will explain and Jack will explain.
Really? I'm not quite au fait with prosthetics, but I'll give it a crack. Oh, my hand too. I see.
That's it. You can stand up, Jack, if you like.
Oh, yeah, I forgot what I do. OK, this goes here.
This one, I just put it...
Yeah, like that.
OK, what you've got here is a perfectly obvious real hand, your right hands, and a perfectly obvious fake hand. And you've each got a brush. So all I want you to do is brush each hand sort of simultaneously. And what you should feel, Adam and Sarah...
Excruciating pain.
is that...
There's a jab hard into the hands. It's they're raw. Sarah, scream!
We'll come to that. At the moment, just a gentle rubbing. Eventually...
This hand will fall off.
Eventually, you will feel in the rubber hand the same sensation you feel in your real hand, which seems extraordinary.
Yeah.
But you will. And let me know when you do.
OK.
It may not have happened yet.
And then you will
You have to keep going. I'm sorry. You have to keep going.
I'm doing I'm keeping going. I'm keeping going.
Have you started to feel
I'm now
it?
starting to feel that this is my hand.
That's it. That's what happens.
Having trouble
Are
distinguishing.
you not, Sarah?
No.
You're not feeling anything?
No.
Keep going, Alan.
Oh, that's nice.
You like?
Yeah.
So
no,
you can feel that in the rubber hand.
Lower. Yeah, definitely. Lower.
Hey, you play your cards right, might get a happy ending with this.
You're not feeling anything, Sarah?
It feels very much like my hand, like a separate...
Oh, now it does feel like your hand.
No, not that hand. My hand feels
Well,
like
that would do,
hand,
yes.
Yeah. My hand has never felt more like it belongs to me.
I'm going faster.
I think that will help.
OK, I got it!
Yeah,
I got it!
yeah,
Faster is better. Keep on speaking.
Right.
It's my hand!
It really does feel
It's
like...
my hand now!
It's bizarre, isn't it? It's genuinely bizarre. And now you can get out the other brush.
What?
What?
They've got... That's amazing, isn't it?
It is amazing, because I didn't believe it was going to happen.
No, you didn't believe. That's what's so good, is you really didn't believe. It doesn't matter how much you know your hand is fake. It doesn't matter how much you know it's rubber. The effect works. You see it, you see that it's a clear fake, but extraordinary, the brain overrides what it knows with what it feels. That's to say, the cognitive side.
That's not that he's just next to a slightly malcoordinated man-child with a rubber hand.
We can show you a replay of Adam's reaction here, because we've actually got it here. If you watch this here...
Oh, that
instant
shirt
replay.
is awful.
That is genuine. And the... it's made all the more extraordinary by the fact, of course, you, as is well known, have a prosthetic foot.
I do indeed.
And so you are used to all the cliches there are about prosthesis and about phantom limbs and all the rest of it.
Indeed, I have a... Can I take this?
Yes, put that away, do.
No, I meant, can I take it home?
Oh, yes.
I have a strange thing with my prosthetic that I've found that I do. If I stub my toe, I will still stop and go, ow! I will actually loudly say, ouch, and then realise oh, it's the prosthetic, it didn't actually hurt.
Yeah.
So I'm conditioned that when you stub your toe, you yell out.
And as you well know from wartime, the screams of pain people had once they'd been amputated in the limbs that no longer existed. They swore that their shins or
And
their
having
feet...
itches in a limb you can't
Itches.
scratch.
Can't imagine anything more agonising than having an itch in something you can't scratch.
Did I tell you, I met this guy who was in America, and he's a Vietnam veteran, and he knew someone who'd lost both legs.
Yeah.
And he went to see him in hospital and said, I still haven't had sex with my wife. And he said, why not? He said, oh, I haven't got any legs now, I feel awkward, I don't really, you know. He said, well, you should just do it. And he said, he really encouraged him to do it. And he said, and then he went back to see him, and he had a smile on his face. And he said, so what did you do the thing? And he said, yeah. And with no legs, you can get right on up there.
Well, it's one of the unexpected advantages. There you go.
I'm cutting off my legs this evening.
Oh, goodness me. The point is the brain has a mental map of the body from birth. And even if that map is distorted by an amputation, it takes a lot for the brain to lose its sense of where everything is. It can be fooled, as the rubber hand showed you.
I remember once being in bed with my girlfriend and doing that thing where I fell asleep on my arm. And because your arm goes numb. And I rolled then over onto my back and my arm fell across my stomach. But because it was numb,
yes,
I actually thought it was her arm on my stomach. Yeah. And I actually started stroking it.
Sweet.
And it was, but I then kind of realised that it wasn't her arm. It didn't feel like her arm.
Hell's in the bed with me. I'm putting the light on. Well, that extraordinary rubber hand illusion proves that even our own senses can tell us porkies. And speaking of porkies, what's the point of pink?
Oh, I mean in terms of like a gender colour?
Well, actually, this isn't to do with gender. It's purely to do with the colour itself. In printing, pink, or at least a ready pink, has a particular name. If I would say CMYK.
Magenta? No.
Magenta is the right answer.
Guess
Absolutely.
it.
Yay!
Guess it!
C is for cyan, which is probably the blue nearest us, as it were, the 6 o'clock blue. M for magenta, Y for yellow, and K is black, CMYK. But magenta is between blue and red, and that's to say between the lowest wavelength of visible light and the highest wavelength of visible light, which is sort of not possible. So it's a kind of can't really exist colour, and yet it does. It's what you might call, I suppose, a pigment of the imagination. Which is nice.
So
which is
in terms of the senses lying,
yeah.
Our eyes and colour is a bit like that, because the world doesn't look like this.
No,
and we have cones and rods in our eyes, and rods deal with darkness and light, black to white, and the cones deal with colour. So, dogs have 2 cones, so they're not colour-blind, but they see a lot less colour than we do in the world, because we have 3.
Yes.
But birds have 4.
Yes.
They can see ultraviolet rays.
Yes.
Wait, was it the $6 million? Yeah, the $6 million man when Steve Austin...
Yes.
It obviously costs a lot more now, $6 million.
Oh, so...
Steve Austin got a bionic eye.
Lee Majors, yes.
And all they gave him, really, was a zoom facility.
Yeah, dung, 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 exactly.
So he could see things further away.
Yeah.
And that was pretty feeble.
Well,
they could have given him about 8 extra cones.
He could run, that's true.
And he could have seen so much...
But how could they have shown that to us?
You could have
X-rays.
Now we have the Instagram eye, and he could make it all sepia and old-fashioned.
But our eyes would still only have 3 cones to watch him seeing something, so it would still look like our
extremely
eyes.
good
He'd have needed a sidekick to say, but what can you see?
Oh, yeah,
like
okay.
a bird. I can see ultraviolet light, which is where the villain is revealed by this. Let me run over there fast. And also, while we're on the subject of the Bionic Man, he had 1 leg that was really good, and yet they showed him running at 70, when the reality was he would have been hopping at 70, because the other leg would have just been destroyed by the speed at which, biomechanically, would have been unable to cope.
Yes. It would have ruined my childhood.
They would have been better off if they had taken off both legs.
Yeah.
Given him 2 bionic legs.
Given him wheels, Adam. Wheels.
And the sex would have been amazing. Bionic sex.
Well, there was the bionic woman, Lindsay Wagner, and she had ears.
Oh, yeah, she could hear anything.
Lee Majors, Lindsay Wagner.
You can't.
Well before anybody in
Fictional
the audience was
people.
born.
Yeah.
Yes, they were totally made up.
Yes, good.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
And
Before your time as well. Oh, God, we feel
no, I
so
remember
old,
them.
don't we?
Yeah, but it was great.
It was, yeah.
It was perfect.
We could go to university for free. But anyway, the fact is, yeah, magenta doesn't really exist, and yet it does for our eyes. There's also a special kind of pink, which is known as Baker-Miller pink, which is you take a gallon of white paint and a pint of red paint, and you come up with what's in the middle, a sort of bubblegum-coloured pink. But what's interesting about that is that it was generally thought by psychologists and others to create a feeling of passivity, and so was used in prisons and mental asylums, and it was known as drunk tank pink.
That looks like a fun prison, to be honest. I would definitely
Gay prison. So, the other thing they did, some American sporting teams thought that, well, this is true about this pink. They changed their visitors' changing rooms to pink in order to make the visiting teams more passive. Yep. Which is kind of cheating, really, isn't it? It's not very sporting. So, university sporting rules in America now mean that you can change any changing room's colour as long as your own is the same colour, to stop that advantage.
It'd be interesting to see actually how much difference it makes, because surely this is an incremental thing we're talking about.
You're completely right. The fact is that apparently, even after half an hour, people get used to it, and if they've been in a prison or a drunk tank before, it reminds them of the drunk tank, and they actually get angry and more aggressive. So it's really of no use whatsoever. Well, that's it. If you see pink elephants, they might not really be there because it seems to be an imaginary colour. Which room in the house would you keep these in?
Or just push it. In the library.
Adam is about to score points! Yeah! Really? Yeah. Very good. That's a penny well spent.
And can I just point out, in Australia, that's $2.50.
What's that game with the pennies? Or don't even... no.
2 Up.
2 Up, that's
2 Up.
right.
It's a
betting game.
It is a betting game, but it's only played one day a year.
That's right.
It's only played on Anzac Day, and it's played with pennies, I think.
That's right, it is. Real old-fashioned pennies.
Yeah, you flick them up in the air, and you have to bet on whether you get 2 heads, 2 tails, or a head and a tail.
And if you win a lot of money, you're allowed to leave the room, and you had half an hour's grace before someone would chase you and club you over the head and steal your winnings, it being Australia.
Yeah.
That's a possible way.
Yeah. And the only day that it's allowed to be played now, it's illegal any time of the year, except on Anzac Day.
Right. Well, if we have a look at the picture again, there's actually English literature books. And this, I'm afraid, is a French chamber pot, or commode, if you prefer. And they liked to shit on us and our literature.
Just so that they can't do anything else.
Yeah.
When you open the lid, does it go, ugh?
Yeah. Shit on you, exactly. Because I can't beat you in a war, I will poo on your books.
Boy for sale.
But perhaps the most impressive invention in recent times for your lavatorial wants...
A helicopter.
Well, gotta go briefcase. It's Japanese, of course. Yeah. How much better do you get than that? It's just simply superb. It's got everything you could possibly want, including a newspaper to leaf through if your easement is taking a bit of time.
And I've always felt really sad when I leave a toilet. Like, oh, we've become such good friends. I wish I could just pack it up and carry it. No, I can.
Generously equipped sealing lid. You can quietly and discreetly go about your personal business any way you please with a fold-out leather privacy panel, which tucks away neatly to the side.
Yeah, it looks like it hides you completely, that panel.
A small tray with...
What's that suitcase just sitting there?
It's got a small tray with a cup holder.
Oh, great. Yeah. So I don't even have to throw away my drink.
Cup holder, you're right. You see, that's like Homer Simpson, isn't it? Do you remember that episode where he bought a huge RV? And Marge said, oh, how many? He said, but Marge, it's got 6 cup holders. 6! Men like cup holders. There's just something so great about them. It's got a vanity mirror.
I like the leather finish.
Yeah, refillable hand sanitizing dispenser. Maximum weight capacity is 80 kilos. Exceeding the recommended weight will void all warranties.
80 kilos?
Yeah.
80 kilos?
May result
So you're going to get the elephant to shit in it?
It is quite...
Oh, you're going to get 80 kilos? I weigh less than 80 kilos.
I know.
I really need to get...
It may result...
I'm going to exceed the limit!
It may result in rupture of waste tank, possible bacteria contamination of briefcase contents, and massive stench. So you don't want to do that.
Assuming you haven't emptied it for a year.
You would have 2 suitcases when you turned up to meetings, and everyone would be like, Derek, why have you
got
got
it
2
wrong.
suitcases? No reason. And then he just hides behind
If you
the leather
accidentally
panel.
went, I've been through the figures and... What?
Massive stench! Massive stench!
How did the meeting go? Oh, it was going fine until I got the bog out.
Alternatively, you go the other way. Thanks for letting me use your toilet briefcase. Oh, I don't have a toilet briefcase.
I ought to say that the 80 kilos includes the person sitting on it. Yeah. So I think I would break it. I horrible feel.
Maybe they...
That changes everything.
Maybe they sell it to kind of banker wankers in the city with the boast of it has an amazing surface to do cocaine off as well when you open it up.
It would be perfect, wouldn't it? Perfect. Absolutely, with the little dimples. You could snort out the little leather dimples. Anyway, that's the gotta-go briefcase. And it's yours, I'm sure, for a very reasonable price. If that question left a bad smell, why is the noseless lemur so badly named?
I'm going to take a punt and say it's not a lemur.
Oh, you're brilliant. We were hoping you would say it has actually got a nose, in which case it's badly named. But you're right, it isn't a lemur. Never was, never will be. In fact, it's a fish. It's pretty... pretty difficult, you'd think, to confuse a lemur and a fish. You'd think that was a map of Madagascar, where lemurs come from, but in fact, that is the fossil, and for a very long time, it was considered to be a lemur, and it was known as Scalabrini's noseless lemur. Pedro Scalabrini was an Italian-born Argentinian naturalist. In 1898, he gave a fossil fragment to a paleontologist called Florentino Ameghino, who was so patriotic in his Argentinianness, he hated the fact that particularly Charles Darwin had said that all primates originated in Africa, which we now know to be true. And a lemur is a primate. And lemurs only come from Madagascar, which was shaved off from the mainland of Africa many, many millions of years ago. There's an aye-aye, wonderful lemur.
That's an English footballer just before a penalty shootout.
Desperately afraid.
Who wants to take one?
So, yeah, he tried to prove, Ameghino, that lemurs existed in South America in pre-Columbian times, which they didn't. It turned out in 2012 that it was, in fact, an extinct fish.
Do you know that picture of the lemur's face?
The aye-aye, yeah.
I'm assuming that's what I would look like if I was using the toilet briefcase.
Those perfectly round eyes. Yeah. That's so beautiful.
That's after the massive stench.
Yeah. They are marvellous creatures. Well, talking of paleontological things, the first platypus that was ever seen by a Western man, nobody believed.
No. But we did have a habit of explorers making up monsters and drawing pictures in the 16th and 17th century.
We certainly did, and that was considered an example of an obvious and ridiculous hoax. How could that be? And George Shaw, who was the naturalist, examined it minutely for stitch marks around the beak because he could not believe that such... No one
But even when you see them in real life, I went to see them in Melbourne, and you just can't believe it.
They're hilarious.
You just watch them for ages going, you don't make any sense.
Their mouths look like they belong in a Japanese briefcase.
They do. They're so charming.
They're smaller than I expected.
Egg-laying mammals. It took 30 years from the first specimen to arrive in Europe for people to believe that it was real. They were absolutely convinced. Oh, we're not going to fall for this. We're not going to fall for this. But there it is, the platypus.
Do you know I'm pretty sure the first kangaroo that was sent back to one of the British museums, they sent it back, but they didn't give an example of how it stood. So it was mounted on all fours.
Oh, that's
with its tiny little paws, because its front paws are massive bugs.
Looks as if it's ready for action. Now, what's this guy on about? That was a 1972, rather before its time, piece of rap by an incredibly famous Italian called Adriano Celentano, who is not known here. He had a huge hit with this, which is called Prisen Collinen Sinai Chuso. You can see it written up, and that'll help you.
Oh, wow.
Prisen kolinen sinain chuzol in the kolmen seivan. Prisen kolinen sinain chuzol. All right.
She's Italian for Gangnam Style.
Yeah, kind of. What it is just babble.
Yeah,
it's babble that is supposed to sound like English. To an Italian, it sounds more or less like English sounds.
There's that famous clip of the person on Malaysia's Got Talent where they're singing Mariah Carey,
yeah.
Can't Live Without You, which is possibly the greatest song ever recorded. But she's heard it clearly through Second Party and doesn't know what the lyrics are, so she bursts into the chorus and she just goes, Ken Lee booty bootachu. And she thinks it's about a guy called Ken Lee.
Anyway, that was a huge hit in 1972. #1 in Italy, and it was in the top 10 in France and in Belgium and the Netherlands. It's babble that is supposed to sound like English. But in 2011, London-based filmmakers Brian and Carl produced a wonderful film called Squirrel, which used a similar technique. The dialogue is actually gibberish, but sounds like English. It's had over 7 million viewers, and we can actually show you a bit of it here. Run VT.
It's fine for me to display the Joe drink all around the mass-production town while I formass the Pope for cream and... Want to know why I chose Farine and all? Want to know why I bleed the whole chase Patrine? You want to get for what?
That wasn't gibberish, but we've got them here tonight. Brian and Carl, thank you very much. One of the hardest things to do in the world is to talk gibberish without it becoming... Did you actually learn your gibberish?
We did, yeah. Yeah.
Did you imagine that there was sense behind it? He thinks she's forgotten his birthday. Is that what...
That's one interpretation. I'm not an actor, but Fiona, who's in the film, is an actress, and so she needed to know what this was about. She needed the intentions, but I think it was important to kind of have a sort of a sense behind what we were saying.
It was a lot like what you were talking about with the Mariah Carey, Ken Lee and stuff. We sort of had the sentences and then kind of garbled them and kind of wrote down the garble as it came out.
I understood more words in that clip, though, than I did in 5 series of The Wire.
And are you Australian, Bo?
Yeah, I'm Australian, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Because we have a similar thing that we do where we don't use words...
Do you think I haven't noticed?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you have it? Another thing you do, which sounds as if you've got heartburn. Is our amusement. I don't know why that is.
That's how they get the actors on Home and Away to do an emotional scene. They just give them heartburn. Oh, Stephen. The cafe's burnt down again. Australians will make enough noises that could be a sentence, but there are no actual words in it. It's just... I'll try. So, Carl, you having a good night? You all right?
Yeah, it's all right, man.
You enjoying your time at GI? Or
I was all right, I know what you're about.
Also, I have a similar thing that I can do with posh people. This gentleman in the front row here, with the blue trousers.
There you go. Sorry, that's wonderful, Brian and Carl. Thank you very much indeed. Very welcome. Magnificent. So, time for some refreshment. Here we go. Let's have you pass that there to Sarah, if you would, Alan. Oh, there you go. There's one for you, Jack. You pass one to Adam.
Yep.
Excellent. I'll have one myself. And there's one for you, Alan. There you go. You've done this before.
So, make it upright first.
All right. Come on, will you talk to it? Come here, you. Oh, you look lovely. You're so huge. I don't think I'm going to be able to manage it. Oh, there you are, yeah.
Oh, hey! What do you think these were once used for?
carrots useful, or particularly these ones on sticks?
Well, not... Yeah, ones on sticks.
Waving in tiny aeroplanes?
Is it like what Gwyneth Paltrow gives her kids?
They probably are.
You feel the dark.
Seeing in the dark, well, you're in the right era. When was it said that carrots could help you see in the dark?
At night.
In which period in history was it made known to people, this idea, which is not really true?
The Dark Ages.
Not the Dark Ages.
When did people discover vitamins?
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't until the beginning of the 20th century.
Because vitamin A is the key, helps your eyes, doesn't it?
Vitamin A does help you.
So it must have been around about then.
Well, it was really...
Must be so hard being a rabbit. They would never get any talking done.
Dogs, they just stay in the hutch.
What are you doing? Oh, God, man, we're bloody carrot.
The problem was, in the Second World War, there was... We would run out of... Put it away.
Concentrate, Tim.
That's what I need to do.
It looked like the world's worst burlesque dancer.
So, in the Second World War, there was a very great shortage of sugar, and there was a big surplus of carrots, and so they put it about that carrots helped you see in the dark.
Oh, did they?
Well, they love carrots,
so they made sort of ice creams, as it were, out of carrots to try and make them attractive to children. There is a certain amount of sugar in them. As you could probably tell, they tasted a little sweet, didn't they?
Yeah, it was lovely.
And there was a group captain, John Cunningham, who was responsible for a very daring night raid over Germany, and they gave it out that what allowed him to do it was the fact that he ate carrots. In fact, what they were really doing was disguising the fact that they had on-board aircraft radar. They had radar on board. They didn't want the Germans to know. The Germans knew we had ground radar, not that we had radar on board.
So they sold the carrot story to the Germans as well?
That was the idea, both to get children to eat their carrots and maybe to get the Germans to believe that it was carrots that allowed our bombers to see over those...
Wouldn't it have been more beneficial if they'd said the reason our pilots are so good at seeing at night is because they eat slightly undercooked chicken?
You should have been working in British intelligence. You're just the kind of chap we need, Whitehall. Now, how does the what the hell effect work? Yes, darling.
This is relevant to people who are dieting or sometimes people who have substance abuse problems and things like that. So it's when you're being quite strict with yourself...
Stop talking about me for a second.
It's when you're being very strict with yourself and you think you've slipped up in a slight way. So you're really, really hungry and you have a biscuit when you're on a diet and then you go, oh, well, I've ruined the diet now. I've had a biscuit. I'm going to finish that packet of biscuits. I'll do some crack.
Tell me about it.
I'm going to... and start again tomorrow.
You're so right, because you think you've fallen off the wagon, you might as well
I've done
just...
everything wrong now, I'll get a tattoo,
People who say, well, I was very good yesterday, and I've been good today, so tomorrow, Black Forest Gatto for breakfast.
I mean, that is certainly a what-the-hell effect, there's no question about that. There is another what-the-hell effect, but yours, I think, counts unquestionably. This is used by Dan Ariely and his partners at Duke University in North Carolina, and what it describes is how when someone has overcome their initial reluctance to cheat, subsequent dishonest behaviour gets easier. And he tested this with college students who were solving maths problems for money. And when his back was turned, they could cheat. And the more they saw they got away with it, the more they cheated. But what was interesting is the scores were not inflated by a few students who were cheating a lot, but many students cheating a little. Cheating, in that sense, is infectious. You go, what the hell, I can do it, so you do it.
Is that like that thing when you're telling a lie and you're telling a story about what happened on the weekend and then you embellish it a little bit and then you think, oh, I got away with that.
Yeah.
Oh, I might just add a little bit more to it. And then suddenly it's this big fanciful story because of that tiny little...
The awful thing is, because it's a lie, it's stored in a different part of your memory. So when a week later someone says, tell that marvellous story about that time you... and you're going, shit, what did I say? I've forgotten the lie I told. But animals, interestingly, animals can cheat. Coco, who is a wonderful gorilla in California, once tore a steel sink off a wall and then used sign language to tell her handlers that the cat had done it.
Yeah.
Real childlike fib. Well, it was the cat.
That's it, yeah, the closer you get to human beings, the
perhaps
more
even
alive.
even more famous Nim Chimpsky, about whom a film was made, who has a really developed sign language. She used to duck out of sign language lessons by saying she needed to go to the loo when she didn't. She'd say, oh, I have to go for a pee, like that, and then she'd go off and you'd see her not going for a pee, or him, rather, in this case. So animals are capable of deception.
So maybe we should only eat animals that can lie.
Well, lying seems to be a sign of intelligence, I'm glad to say, as an inveterate liar myself. Airily, this man who did the work on the what the hell effect, he found people who score higher on psychological tests for creativity are more likely to engage in dishonesty. Anyway, there we are. We are who we are because we cheat. The what the hell effect describes how, after the first lie, the others just keep coming. Now, be truthful. How do you rate your own driving, generosity, and ability to conduct an adult relationship?
I was reading about how we all overestimate our own input into things. So they were asking couples, what percentage of the housework do you do? And it would add up to about 130%.
Yeah.
Because everyone, even if they know they only do a little bit, they still think that's more, or it's worth more. And so
everyone thinks they do more than their partner.
And everyone thinks they're a good driver.
Yeah, everyone
thinks they're better than average.
I'll be a great driver, I'll be a great dad.
Yeah,
I don't.
Good in bed. Oh, you don't think any of those things?
No, I can't drive, so...
You
I don't
literally
think
can't
of
drive.
myself as a good driver.
You haven't passed your test?
No.
Oh, well, then that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably are a crap driver then.
Yeah.
Do you think you're good in bed?
I haven't passed that test either. I failed on 3 minors and a major.
Was it the emergency stop?
Yeah.
That was the worst.
So true.
Impossible.
I kept changing lanes when I shouldn't.
Yeah, we all do have a high view of ourselves in that regard. Dear God Almighty. Yeah, we tend to think we're better at things like donating to charity, voting, maintaining a successful relationship, volunteering for unpleasant lab experiments. But I'm glad to tell you that Institute for the Child Study at Toronto University claims that toddlers who tell lies early on are more likely to do well in later life. The complex brain processes involved in formulating a lie are an indicator of a child's intelligence.
So it doesn't necessarily mean if you lie your way through life, you'll do better. It just means if you can lie early, then you're quite creative and you can get through life.
Yes.
I'm saying this in case my daughter is watching.
Yeah. Good point. Don't want to get the wrong idea. Absolutely. So, now I want you to be thoroughly dishonest by pretending you don't know you're going to get a klaxon. Because it's general ignorance time. Fingers on buzzers, please. What are deserts mostly made from? Yes, sir.
Sands.
Oh, thank you. You'd think, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Not the case. No, only 1/3 of the world's land surface is desert, and only a small proportion of that is sand. North American deserts are around 2% sand. No more than that. There's Monument Valley. Globally, on average, only 20% of all deserts is sand, a fifth. The remainder is made of rock, shingle, salt, or even snow.
And camels.
And camels.
Camel
Lots
poo.
of cigarettes all over the desert. The driest desert in the world is...
The Gobi Desert.
No? Any thoughts?
Antarctica.
Well, there is an argument for saying the Antarctic is a dry desert.
It doesn't rain there.
But, yeah, it doesn't. But Atacama is considered the driest land desert. Some weather stations there have recorded no rain whatsoever, not one.
What a boring job.
Yeah. The largest desert on Earth is Antarctica. Even though much of it is under snow, the one area that is the driest, man who shouts a lot, are the McMurdo Dry Valleys.
It's Red Indian now.
Yeah. And they consist mostly of... They consist... Man who shouts a lot. The McMurdo Dry Valleys are so dry that dead animals mummify rather than decay like that one there.
What animal is it?
Seal. If it's dehydrated, it might come back to life if you get it wet.
Yeah, if you get it wet,
Yeah,
it
you
rains.
could. You could.
Like freeze-dried.
Yeah. Like Nor chicken soup.
Ball on the tail. Doing a ball on the
Yeah,
tail
I can
there.
see in the rain. Yeah.
It seems that if you want to identify a desert, the best way to do so involves looking for rain, not for sand. How did the Vikings bury their dead?
On a boat. On fire.
Oh, on a boat on fire, Jack. No.
In the ground.
Yeah, more or less. Yes,
I'm a bit sad about how tentative I was about that.
The myth of the burning longboat is very, very recent, 19th century. In fact, there is one story of Baldur, a god who was apparently burned like that. The rest of it is pretty much ladybird books.
I love the Ladyboy books.
Did I say ladyboy books? Ladybird books.
And they didn't have horns either, did they?
No, they didn't have horns. That was a
that
later.
one doesn't.
It really, the late 19th century was a period of enormous European rediscovery of their ancient myths and so on, or at least not just rediscovery, but making up. In the case of Britain, it was Arthurian legend and Druidic legend, a lot of which was totally nonsense. And there was a Swedish illustrator called Gustav Malmström, and he did these horned helmets and dragon's wings on the hero's headgear. And his saga became an international hit and made the Vikings' name. And a Vikinger was a pirate or raider. A Viking was a raiding expedition. A Vikinger would go on a Viking. And Vik or Vik is Old Norse for bay or fjord. And Reykjavik means a smoky bay, for example. Riki, Old Riki is the old smoky town, Edinburgh, in Scottish.
I've also heard once that the kind of socialist atmosphere that pervades Sweden kind of also came from the Vikings, because there was just enough alcohol to keep everyone happy. So you would just... There's a Swedish word called lagom, which means not too much and not too little.
Oh,
and when you gave out the vodka to all of the people rowing on the ships, you had to give them... Or the aquavit, yes. Yeah. Not too much, that someone down the back wouldn't get enough, and not too little, that they'd be unhappy that they didn't get enough. So it was just evenly shared out over everyone that was rowing, and then that's kind of pervaded Swedish culture, and that's why they are now...
Sherry people. Pissed. Lightly pissed sherry people. Yes, Vikings sometimes buried their dead in a boat, but always on land. Which bit of whale did they use to make a whalebone corset?
I'm going to take a punt and say the jaw.
Not the jaw.
Penis.
Was it
Not the penis.
Is it not part of the whale?
It's not. It is part of the
It is
whale.
part of the whale.
Not the wish. Did you say the wishbone?
So for a
Huge
corset-
tug of war.
Is it the ribs?
Who said the ribs?
I did the ribs.
Sorry about that. No, not the ribs.
No worries.
I think Shouty Man had it again.
That isn't how you do it on a show.
This is not that thing with James Corden on Sky One. Thank you very much indeed.
My show.
The answer is, oh yes. More's the pity. I wish it were the Shouty Show.
With the drunk cricketer.
Yeah, that one, exactly. No, I think they were shouting the baleen. Does that mean anything to you?
Oh, the thing in the mouth.
Yeah, the sieve in the mouth.
Sieves,
There are two types of whale, baleen whale and toothed whale. And the blue whale is an example of a baleen whale there. The baleen is, in fact, keratin. The same thing that our hair is made, or our fingernails, or rhinoceros horn is. And it makes it's wonderfully pliable. It's like it was the plastic of the 19th century, essentially. Right. There was a Mr. J.A. Seavey trading out of Boston who offered 54 different whalebone products. Whips, parasols, umbrellas, fishing rods, canes, hats, divining rods, riding crops, ferrules, brushes, mattress stuffing, back supporters, suspenders, billiard cushions, springs, pen holders, shoe horns, tongue scrapers, and policemen's clubs.
Wow. That is a good Saturday night.
Empty your pockets.
But real whalebone was used for something else. It was a cheap substitute for ivory. And you probably know of the carving that was done on it that sailors used to do. It had a particular name.
I do not know of the name of that.
We're going to ask Shouty Man again. Yeah. Scrimshaw is the right answer, yes. Scrimshaw.
Very clever Shouty Man.
He's a smart Shouty Man. It may be a whole series of organised Shouty Men, I don't know. We're very impressed by them. They may have to get a score at the end of the game, that's what's worrying me. Yes, Scrimshaw is, you know, that very carved whalebone effect, sometimes done on horns. I mean, amazing, something. I mean, even a whole desk was once done out of whalebone, because whales are big animals.
I'd love to think that there were cases of people wearing a whalebone corset and just being out at a party and going, really hungry. It's a spare prawn in here.
Because the baleen is used, it's this huge sieved area. It sucks in this huge amount of water filled with krill and plankton and so on. Then the baleen sort of meshed together and it pushes all the water out, and all the food is left clinging to this filter, which it then sucks into its mouth.
Right.
So it would be the equivalent of going up in your whalebone corset to the buffet and just going...
That's right.
Just letting out the bits you didn't want.
Yes, most whalebone was not bone but baleen in the 19th century equivalent of plastic. Can you name a blue sea creature? Alan. Oh! Yes, Jack.
Shouty man, drop it like it's hot. He's lying!
Is he going to fall for our trap? It's the right answer!
That's the fastest I've ever been on the draw as well.
Quick, and it
I
still
actually broke my buzzer.
You did. We thought you might be so afraid you'd say not the blue whale.
No, I was pretty sure.
You're pretty sure it is blue. I mean, it's as blue. I mean, it's not very blue, but it's blue enough to call blue.
Bluer than most things, isn't it?
Well, it's
all
certainly
relative. The colour spectrum's different underwater, isn't it?
It's
Stephen?
quite a common colour. It's quite a common colour amongst
Gibberish blokes that can understand all of that.
Absolutely, thank you, Liam.
Dory is blue.
There's the blue marlin, which is pretty blue.
Dory is blue.
Yes, the blue starfish you can see is jolly blue. Blue marlin there.
Blue Man Group.
And the beautiful blue angel there, the Glaucus atlantica. The blue angel, as well as being a Marlene Dietrich film, is a very interesting fish in as much as it's venomous, but its venom is second-hand. It feeds on the Portuguese man of war and digests its poison so that it becomes venomous itself. Isn't that clever?
That's amazing.
Cunning.
Very cunning, very cunning. So the grey whale is pretty grey, the humpback is pretty grey, the sperm whale is dark grey-black. But the blue whale, as you can see, is jolly blue. There it is, bottom right.
I see it.
Yay! Your favourite whale. Would we lie to you? Blue whales are blue, pretty much. Well, that's our last tissue in our box of lies. It's time for the unvarnished truth with the scores, and it's pretty bally fascinating. In last place, with -19, but with a tremendous performance and a wonderful last rally, Jack Whitehall! -11, an entirely creditable third place. She knew so much. Sarah Pascoe. From -8, second place, Alan Davis. And a staggeringly secure first place on +14, Adam Mill. Tonight calls a special award of -39 for the shouty man in the audience. Yes, it only remains for me to thank Adam, Jack, Sarah and Alan and leave you with the last words of Spanish Prime Minister General Ramon Maria Navarrete. I do not have to forgive my enemies. I have had them all shot. Good night.